Gamers, today on Dice and Dragons, we are covering our first, full Kickstarter game together. You could call Zombicide Green Horde a Kickstarter game, but this one is currently only available to those that kickstarted the game, and that is Pulp Detective. Now, the game is designed by Todd Saunders. It is published by Ludi Creations and Albin Viard Game Studios Plus. Now, this will be available via the publisher's website in the near future. And before I toss it over to Julie to talk about this pulpy adventure, I just want to say one thing about the campaign itself. This actually showed up early, months early. No issues with tracking, and really nothing that I've seen on the Kickstarter page complaining about getting the game. So I gotta give them big 2 thumbs up. One of the best projects that I've ever backed. Now, with that being said, I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
So it's a 1 to 2 player game that plays in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's for ages 14 and above, though you might be able to get away with somebody a little bit younger. Also, it has 3 modes of play, basically, that I'll let you touch on a little bit more. But when it comes to a timing perspective, at least from the competitive version of this, I think it tends, for at least in our case when we played it, tended to be a little bit longer than a half an hour. So time, I think could be a little bit longer than the 15 to 30 minutes, just like it can be shorter when we lost spectacularly.
About a 10-minute game there, and then we're like, are we dead already?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are 3 game modes, and just to explain what you're actually going to be doing in the game and what's your goal. You can play it solo, you can play it cooperatively, or you can play it competitively. And the nice thing about the competitive mode is you're not really going head-to-head with each other, which is one of the reasons why she actually agreed to give it a try. But essentially you are rolling dice, trying to get items, but mainly trying to get clues so that you can solve the case and catch the criminal. And with that being said, we're going to do what we always do here on Dice and Dragons. We're going to grab a drink, or our drink, which is very appropriate in a pulp story. It should have been whiskey. Why isn't it whiskey?
Because I made the drinks this time.
Okay.
Got to grab our partner.
Best friend, partner, or your best partner. Because sometimes, in pulp stories, there's just that partner that everyone doesn't want to have.
Okay. Let's just have our drink. Take it to the table.
Yeah, we're taking it to the table. Keep it here. Now we're going to take a quick look at the components that you get in Pulp Detective. As I go through the setup, I will go into a more in-depth explanation of things like the cards as well as the dice. This is really just for an overview for people that are curious as to what exactly is in the box, and just a little brief explanation as to what the components are. Now with that being said, let's get into it. Now I want to start with the dice, because these are probably going to be some of the things you're going to be using the most. You've got the red and gray die, which are special die that you can acquire as items. Now, you'll notice here that there is a star symbol on some of the die, the yellow ones. Now, the reason for that is this star marks the amount of times that this icon shows up on the die. When there's a star, it means it shows up twice. So each die is different. You'll notice that in this case, it is the eye that shows up twice, as well as the feet, the footprints. Whereas on this one, it is the footprints and the bullet. Now, this is a key aspect of gameplay. And the reason for that is when you get to make your rerolls, you get to pick which die you're going to roll. You'll see a little bit more about that when we go into how to play and talk a little bit more about the strategy of the game. Now, here you've got your 4 twist tokens, the different types you can get: the bullet, the private eye, the newspaper, or the footprints. You notice that they're dual-sided for when you're playing a 2-player game. Now, one thing I do want to highlight, and it is not a mistake in the rulebook, it's just that when the game was being published, it was supposed to use red and blue colorings for the cubes as well as the tokens. What we did end up getting is yellow and black. So once again, you've got these 4 types of tokens. I just have the extra ones put right here. And you're going to gain these as you play the game. They're your twist tokens. You kind of you bank them in order to be able to solve a card. And for those of you quickly looking at it, you can see a little bit about the cards right there. we've got our cubes. Now the cubes are used as our trackers, and once again there's 2 sets, as is a 2-player game. Yellow I like to use for the detectives, and black I prefer to use for the police department. You also have these 4 special tokens right here, and you can find out more information on them in the rulebook. I'll talk a little bit about them during setup, but these come into play during the 2-player games. Now, we've gone over the tokens, we've gone over the dice. Let's take a quick look at some of the cards that we get now in Pulp Detective. Now, looking at the cards, we've got our detectives, as you can see marked by the red symbol at the bottom, and we've got our police investigators marked by the blue. You'll notice that each character has a different special ability, and also a nice little blurb about who they are. I also do want to highlight that the cards are double-sided, so you do get a total of 4 cards. It's actually a total of 8 different characters that you can play. Here we've got the criminal, and I'll explain how you figure out which criminal you're facing, but you place the criminal when you're playing it with the person you're fighting facing up, and this is also double-sided, giving you a total of 4 different criminals that you'll be facing. So those are your characters, the criminals and the detectives. Now we're going to take a quick look at the different cases. So here are the 3 different cases that come in the base game. You can get more via an expansion. The yellow one right here, which is the case of the death's door damsel, is really your starting case and the one that doesn't have any modifications. You'll notice that on these cases here, there are certain things that you're not able to do. For example, you cannot use the bullet in terms of a twist marker, and you only need 3 clues to solve the case. You also have a total of 18 hours, whereas if you're looking at this one right here, you're not able to use the red newspaper die, and it's a total of 19 hours. So that's the interesting thing about each of the cases. They do present their own challenges and have their own specific rules that go with them as well. Here we've got your character card right down here. You'll see your stamina level, which tells you what dice you roll, the amount of clues you've collected, and when you're going to be facing the criminal. And there's 2 of them, once again, as it's a 2-player game. This is just the list of items. Now each character can only have 1 item at a time. You can spend your item at any point in time, but just to give you an idea how to use the trackers. Trackers are used on each of the cards to just, keep track of what you have. If it was on the item, like I just showed you, or your stamina, or however many clues you may have. So those are the character cards. Let's take a look now quickly at the 3 other types of cards, your investigative cards, and then we'll move on to teaching you guys how to set up and how to play the game. So there are 3 different investigative cards, and I've just taken out a quick example of them each here. You notice at the top corner right there what you're most likely to get from these cards. Now, clue means a clue, obviously. The gun means stamina, that you've got a chance of gaining stamina, and the hat means you've got a chance of gaining an item. You can see some examples of how the cards will work here, and basically the way it works is you're trying to solve either the 24, the 20, or the 7, depending on where you're at on the case time track. So you can see, like for example, the informant, a lot higher chance of getting clues right here. You're looking at the cliffhanger card, as it's called. You can notice by the C, the I, and the F, you've got 2 chances of getting some stamina. And on the follow the lead, you've got 2 chances of gaining an item. Now, there are positive and potentially negative effects with regards to those cards. We'll explain it a little bit more in the how to play. But for those of you that were just taking a closer look at it, it's depicted in the 2 columns, the white and the brown column. And then last but not least, you've got your rule book for Pulp Detective. And as I always like to showcase, there is some quick definitions and the plot points just to really explain some things for you. So it is definitely useful to have on the table for your first game. Now we've covered all of that. It's time for us to step behind the camera, as it is a card game, and we'll take a closer look as to how you play Pulp Detective. Keep it right here, and hopefully we're going to solve this case before we run out of time. Now let's set up and teach you guys how to play Pulp Detective. So while I'm doing the setup, we will take a little bit of a closer look at the cards. So before we start placing things out there, you'll just notice that I have my detective, I have the item card, and also a stamina and clue card. I have just placed the criminal off to the side below the case. You just need to have it out. It will only be decided if you happen to succeed at the game and get all 4 clues. We've got the case, and in this scenario, I'm going to be doing the case of the death's door's damsel. Our dice are for tracking cubes, and what we've done is we've taken the 3 stacks that we had earlier, your cliffhangers, informants, and follow the lead cards, and just shuffle them together to create our investigative deck. Now, what I want to take a closer look at right here, just quickly, is the detective. We talked about them all having their own special action. You will see it highlighted right there. In the case of Lucky Dan Hamilton, he reduces stamina by 1 to roll either the red or the gray die during the investigation phase, phase 2. Here we just have the list of all the items that we can get. I'll explain how you can acquire items once we take a closer look at the first card. You will see that at the start here you do not have an item, and then you will be able to gain these different items. Their descriptions and what they do are listed there. And once you gain an item, you will place your tracker token as to what item you have. For the setup and the start of the game, it's just going to start right here. Now, here we have our stamina and our clues. There is some explanation on the cards that tells you what to do, like for example, when you gain a clue, what happens for each clue that you gain. Here's some explanations what happens when you have 8 stamina. You actually notice the amount of die you're able to roll. And then here's some negative effects when you get down to 2 or 1 stamina. So clearly denoted by the lines on the cards. And you'll see right here, just really remember the amount of dice you can roll. The B, the N, and the A is for what level you're starting at for beginner, novice, and advanced. So when we're setting up the stamina, we'll just, for example, use beginner, place it at 6. The clues will go at 0. Now, we'll take a look at the case card right here. So you get your nice flavor text for the case up here. And then we track the time of day. It will tell you where to start based on if you're beginner, novice, or advanced. Now the reason that night and day is important, certain detectives have abilities that will take place during the nighttime, some during the day. And that's all you need for the case. And for setting it up, we put this here at B for beginner. Now, we're going to take a close look at the card because I want to just explain how these cards work and how we're going to solve them. So you'll notice here that we've got these 2 blue sections, and then we've got the green right here. As we build out our storylines, these have the potential to give us rerolls. And I'll explain that when I show you guys how to play. But effectively what we're trying to do is get things to line up, and then that presents a reroll opportunity. If it's set up like this with blue and red, that does not work. It really has to be green to green. So now we'll take a closer look at the card. You'll notice this 2 die symbol right here. When you gain an item, you're going to be looking at the discard pile and what that die is, and then you're going to pick the corresponding item on the item chart right here. This is also how you're going to determine the villain. So, well, not villain, criminal, as you can see right here. There's also a die amount, blank, 6, 5, 3, 4, and 1, 2. I'm going to explain what will happen if you get all 4 clues, but I just wanted to show you how that is tied into this section of the cards that will be in the discard pile. Now, here is the hours. So, for example, if this is the first card you pull, you're going to be trying to complete what's at 24, meaning you need to roll the private eye, the footprints, and the newspaper. If you succeed, you gain what's in the white column. So as you can see, there's a potential for items, as well as a clue, if it happens to be 19. And then if you fail, there are negative effects that happen. You can lose an item, or time passes, in that case, with that clock logo. And you're always going to be going with what's closest to where you are on the time track. So 24 can only be done on the first turn. 19 will be, you've got a couple chances to do 19. It'll depend on if you fail things. And then 4 will be basically after you pass 19. So that's how you take a look at the card and how you read the cards. Now, we're just about done setting up the game. Now, the last thing we need to do is just get the storyline started, and then we'll teach you guys how to play. So first thing you're going to do is just shuffle everything up one last time. And then we deal out the top 3 cards. Now, what I then do is I get to pick one of the cards. Now, do I want to gain stamina, which could be good to potentially get that up there so I can get 5 die, or do I want to try to gain an item, which could potentially give me stamina as well? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the card that's going to be part of my storyline, and I flip it over. So this is my starting card, which is going to be Follow a Lead. I then take one card, I discard it, and the other card goes back into the deck just randomly. So I'm going to keep this other Follow the Lead card, put it randomly back into the deck, and I will place this card like this on the side just to signify that it's been discarded. Actually, I'll place it this way, just above the dice. You guys should have a good view of it. And this represents my starting storyline card, which I'm going to place up here. And then afterwards, I can either build my storylines down or going off to the right. And that's how you set up the game. Everything's out there. We've got the twist tokens that we need. I'll explain to you guys how you're going to be gaining those once we take a look at how to play. So keep it right here, and I'll teach you guys how to play this single player version. Then we'll talk a little bit more about the 2-player version, and I'll show you guys how to set that up. Now we're ready to teach you guys how to play Pulp Detective. Now the game is divided up into 3 phases, and we actually did the first phase called storyline, building your storyline, as part of the setup. You have to get a card out before you're even able to play, and you'll obviously need a potential discard. So that's what we did. We did the storyline phase. The next is the investigate phase. Now, what we can do during the investigate phase is we take 4 yellow die. Now, it depends on the stamina that we have as we're starting the game at beginner. We have 6 stamina, which gives us 4 die. Now, we may roll them all at once or one at a time. The key to this game is really going to be rolling them one at a time. You can see what I need right there is 2 footprints and 1 private eye. Now, what I want to roll is, you know, these die that have the star symbols on them because they're the most likely to get me what I need. And we can roll them one by one. So I'm going to roll. I get a newspaper, unfortunately, not at all what I need. Let's roll the next one. We get the private eye. I'm going to just leave it up there. We get a bullet. So not at all what I need. And then I get another private eye. Well, that is actually just not a good roll. So I'm probably going to end up suffering the negative consequences. Now what I can do is I can take 1 negative time, so slide the time down to 23, and re-roll a yellow die. Now if I'd gotten a better roll, that may be a possibility that I want to look at, but right now this roll is very much not good, so something I do not want to do. Essentially, I'm going to suffer the negative effects of the card just because of the roll. But the nice thing about the game is this is where you gain your twist markers. You can take any of the icons you got here and keep it as a twist marker. Now, I'm going to take the newspaper, actually. Well, actually, no, not for Lucky Dan. Newspapers and bullets, I've got other ways to acquire them. So I'll actually take the the footprint. The footprint will work. I'll take that. And what will then happen is I suffer the negative effects, moving my stamina down to 5. Luckily, I still roll 4 die. And we go into phase 3 where time marches on, and we just move time down the time track. Now I'm just going to move the yellow die off to the side, as we're now going to go back into phase 1, the storyline phase. And what I once again do is deal out the top 3 cards, and I get to pick one that I'm keeping, put one back in the deck, and discarding one. I did lose stamina, but I really want to get some clues because that can potentially give me back my stamina. So I'm going to take the informant. I'm going to take the cliffhanger, put it back into the deck, and I will discard this cliffhanger card. Now, as I'm building my storylines, I can build to the right, or I've got the opportunity to put it below. Unfortunately, I did not get a card that lets me get any type of rerolls. So I'm actually going to put this below for the moment. That may or may not be a good idea, but I will cut ahead like after we go through another turn of how you're going to play and just show you guys what a more built out storyline will look like. So once again, it's now the investigate phase. I take my 4 die. Maybe I should have kept the newspaper because I got some hard stuff showing up, and let's roll and see what happens. I did just drop that, but I'm going to roll 1 by 1. Once again, trying to get the best option. So we get feet, the footprint's not what I needed. The eye, once again, not what I needed. A bullet, so one of the things that I need. And a newspaper, one of the things that I need. Now, in this scenario, I'm going for the 17, which is a clue. If I fail, time marches on. So I do have some good opportunities here. Just to showcase Dan's special ability, I'm actually going to take negative stamina and roll the newspaper die because I need another newspaper. And there we go. So I actually succeeded getting the newspaper. Now, as time's going to march on anyway, I'm going to take a chance and re-roll one of the die. I want to find one that has potentially 2 bullets. Now, I may be in trouble as neither of these may have 2 bullets, so they don't, which means my rolls before really weren't the greatest, but I'm going to try anyway. And I fail, so lost stamina, lost time. And yeah, I thought it'd be easier to get bullets, but I'm going to take a bullet as a twist marker because I did get 1. Put the dice off to the side. I will then advance time 1. I also suffer from the negative effect at 17 there. Also time marches on, so I lose another hour. So as you can see, I lost a lot of time there and a fair bit of stamina, and I haven't got that much accomplished. And that is essentially how you're going to be playing the game. So I'm going to cut right here. We're going to show you guys a quick example of like later gameplay once you've maybe built out your storyline a little bit more. Then we'll take a look at how you play with 2 players, whether it's cooperative or competitive. Keep it right here. We're going to solve this case hopefully a lot faster than I'm going because right now it's not looking good. Now I've gone in and advanced the game just to show you guys what your storylines are going to look like, maybe, around like hour 10, how we've been building things out. Maybe we've had some successes, but still not doing great. We've got a discard pile, and let's go over how you're going to play the game in this scenario. So at this case, I got 5 stamina, no items. Well, you know what? I'm actually going to select an item just to give you guys a better example of how to use the items. And let's take a look at what the game will look like in its later stages. We will also quickly go over after this confronting the criminal, just so that you get a good idea of how that works. Now, we've got 5 stamina, so once again, 4 die. You can once again roll them all at once, which I'm not going to do. I will roll them 1 by 1. Now, as you're building the storyline, you either go down or to the right. I did cherry pick some cards just to show you guys how things can potentially chain together, but also you'll see there are some dead ends where you don't get reroll opportunities. Now, for the purpose of this storyline, this card right here is the one that I added. The cliffhanger is the active card, trying to get a clue, and we are at hour 14. Well, you know what? I'm just going to give you another example of the clue, so let me just lower this to 7. We're at hour 7, trying to resolve the cliffhanger for this example. So I roll the first die. We get the eye, which I need. Then roll the second die, which is the newspaper. Our third die, which is another eye. Do not need that at all. And we get the footprints. So what I need now is I need to re-roll this die a few times. I'm not able to roll 5 die, so can't do anything more with the yellow die. I could potentially use the gray or the red die. And as an item, I can roll the gray die once during phase 2. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is I need a bullet. Let's use the gray die. And that fails miserably. We get a newspaper. But this is a great example because it means that I can now take out this newspaper and potentially use as one of the dies that I'm going to re-roll. Now what I need are footprints or another bullet. Now we have re-roll opportunities because of the way things have linked up. We've got a total of 1, 2, 3, no connections here, 4, 5 re-rolls. Now we're going to see what we can get. We get the second footprint that we need, leaving only the bullet. Now, this is a good die to keep rolling, so hopefully we'll get it. Now we've got it, and this will give you an example. So we succeed gaining the clue, and when you gain your third clue, it says, one item of your choice when you find the third clue. I like rerolling the gray or the red die. I will once again pick to get the gray die, so that's a pretty cool thing that happens. And we're almost closer to confronting the villain. Now the other thing I could have done in this situation was potentially spend one of my twist tokens. So let's say after my last roll I gotten this, I could choose to ignore that and spend the twist token bullet, it doesn't matter what color it is, to resolve the cliffhanger. And that's an example of what the gameplay is going to look like later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that we've gotten 4 clues, we're confronting the criminal. I'm going to clear this space up in front of us, and then we'll take a look at the 2-player variants after we cover confronting the criminal. Keep it right here because hopefully I'll be able to put this bad guy away for good. Now we are ready to set up confronting the criminal. Now I didn't clean the board yet because I need to explain what you're going to be taking a look at in the storyline to determine what criminal you're fighting. So you need to look at the top corners to see what die icon comes up the most. And this time it's pretty clear. We get the blank die icon that comes up 4 times, meaning we take a look at the criminal card and we face that criminal that has the dies that correspond to it. In this case, it will be the spider. So I will just take all of these storyline cards now and set them aside as we will no longer be needing them. Now, for the case, just to give you guys an example, I didn't march time forward. And this just because I didn't feel like doing it. I wanted to have some time to be able to show you guys what will happen as we try to defeat the criminal. Just don't forget, if you go past 1, you lose. If you ever go past 1 stamina, you will lose the game. Now you'll notice that on the criminal card, they have icons just like the cases in the storyline cards you're trying to solve. So you need to get these symbols. Twist markers may be used in order to defeat the criminal. So having a lot of twist markers coming into the end can be very advantageous. And I want to just highlight, you have 1 chance to beat him. If you are not able to get this, you will lose. You can also spend 2 hours on the time track to re-roll a yellow die. So in this case, I do have a fairly good chance of beating him with all the twist markers, but let's just see how it would go anyway. We've got 4 die. I don't want to roll them all at once. Could be fun. Actually, let's just try it. Something new. You can roll like this. It'll make things more challenging. So ironically, I did roll the 2 newspapers. We've got a bullet, and we've got the footprints. I just need the private eye. Now, I can spend the gray die and see if it comes up. I don't think it will, but this will also give us other opportunities. I'll also spend 1 stamina to roll the newspaper die, as I can. And by doing that, I've just essentially freed up. So bullet, newspaper, and the footprint, which frees up really 2 die that I can roll. And I need the private eye. So which one of these has the private eye on it? So this one has the private eye on it. That's the die I'm most likely going to want to re-roll. Now I can spend 2 hours on the time track to try to get the eye. Failed. Try again. Bullet. Try again. Brings me down to 1. If I don't get it, I lose the game. And in that case, because I didn't have the private eye icon, I would lose the game. Now, if I'd had the private eye twist marker, and this is what I'd rolled, I could have spent that and defeated the criminal successfully beating the game. And that is how you confront the criminal. So as you can see, guys, very straightforward game. We've given you guys just a good example of how to play. Oops, I forgot to move that down to 0, and this should have been moved up to, confronting the criminal phase. Just forgot to do that, but I was really teaching you guys how to play the game. So keep it right here. I'm going to talk about how you're going to set up the 2-player variant. I'm going to try to do my best because we've got a limited amount of space, and it can get a little table, well, not really that much table consuming, but you need a fair bit of space to play 2 players. Keep it right here, and we'll work on solving the next case. Now we're going to take a look at the 2-player variants for Pulp Detective. Now the one thing that I wanted to highlight first is the rule book and the special tokens, because you're going to probably forget these the first few times, so you really want to keep this in mind. You can see right here, sorry, my arm's over them, the 4 special tokens. And what you're able to do is you can spend twist tokens to take these 4 special tokens. So you get a lead, which requires a newspaper. You can use the special action of any unselected detective that is still available. So the ones that you're not playing as. And for example, you cannot, if I'm playing Lucky Dan Hamilton, I cannot use a special action of Velda Scott. It has to be someone that is still in the game box. The footprints gives you access to interrogate. If your current task would reward you with a clue, this task requires 1 icon fewer of your choice when you spend the special token. You've got the private eye logo for the Deus Ex Machina, which will let you flip 1 to 3 dice, which you have already rolled for this task, to their opposite faces. It can be very good. And then finally, Chekhov's gun, which lets you lose 1 stamina or 1 hour. So you'd advance the time marker 1 space to make all of your twist markers wild for this task. So for example, if Inspector Weaver spent Chekhov's gun, this one, you could turn all these wild. And when you play a 2-player game, 1 player will start with Chekhov's gun. In cooperative, it doesn't matter who. So in this case, it'd be great to have it for Inspector Weaver. I'll just put it here. But in competitive, it would go to the detective, the PI, the red character. So you can see that. I just want to highlight that. That is on page 16 of the rule book. Now, we'll just put that off to the side, and let's explain how things work. So for the co-op, the storyline mode works differently. You actually flip the top 4 cards face up. Then players get to decide which ones they keep and which ones they're going to discard. Each player has to keep 1 card. 1 will then be put back into the deck. The other one is discarded. Do any of these follow leads have a clue? Nope. So just for the example, we'll put this in the discard, and the ones that we have kept face up, we'll say that player 1, Lucky Dan, keeps the cliffhanger, and we'll keep this other cliffhanger, and this one will go back in the deck. Now, part of the really cool thing about playing face up, as you notice, you're already starting with 1 reroll possibility. And we should be going to the right, so I'll move this back. Now, player 2 builds in the same direction as player 1. It's clearly stated in the rulebook. You can look. So as cards are coming out, and you're making your selections, both players are going to be building on the same side, also potentially down, but you're really working together because these reroll areas here work for both of you. And yeah, just to give you an example of how things will work. Now I slid a little bit off camera there, but it's just sort of the best thing that I can do. So ideally you'd want to get a green, and I'll take a look at the cards if there's one with a green. You'd want a green up here to connect together. And that's how you're going to be building out the storylines. And the way the clues work, and let me just put this down, is that when player 1 gets a clue, player 2 gets a clue, you share the rewards at the same time. And then when one of you gets all 4 clues, well, both of you essentially, move up to confront the criminal. Each player will get a chance to confront one of the criminals. And if one player fails, the other person will also get a chance to try to succeed. Now, sorry, I just dropped that. You have one time track with only one time marker. So remember, if you're trying to beat the criminal, don't waste all of your resources at once. And you can pick which player is going to confront the criminal. And other than that, you're going to be rolling dice. And you're really doing it based on what's on your sheet and your items. You're not able to share dice or share items. The only thing that chains together are the rerolls. So that's how you'd play the cooperative version of the game. We're going to cut, and I'll be back with the competitive version. And you know that those private gumshoes always want to beat the police to the punch. So now we're taking a look at the competitive variant of Pulp Detective. You'll notice that the private eye has Chekhov's gun and gets to go first. And the big difference in this is that each player is using their own clues. So you will not be gaining clues together. And the setup and the storyline phase is different. That's the only big difference. But you're still going to be building your storylines out the same way. Now, what I'll do is I'll just teach you how the storyline thing differs. What you do, so in this case it'll be for Lucky Dan, you deal 3 cards face down. What Dan does is he then gets to pick 1 card to keep. In this case it'll be the informant. Passes 1 card over, the cliffhanger, and then puts the other one back into the deck. For Weaver, they would then be dealt 2 cards face down, and they get to pick the one that they would like. So in this case, they do not want the cliffhanger. They're putting it back into the deck. And this would be flipped face up as the discard. Now, I'm just going to put the deck back over here. They will then flip over their cards and be building the storylines to the right together. Once again, if you connect at the top, those are reroll opportunities that will be coming up that your opponent will also get to share. And just to give you an example, let's take a look at some of the stuff. For example, if we have stuff like this, even though we are competitive, this represents a reroll opportunity right here for both players. Now, if there's a connection later on, and I know this doesn't look good, but just to give an example, on one player's storyline, this reroll only counts for that player. Now what you're doing, you're then trying to be the first to get all your clues, to get 4 clues, and confront the criminal. You notice that the time track is separate because depending on how successful you are and what you decide to do, your time may advance differently than the other players. And the first person to get all 4 clues and defeat the criminal wins the game. Also, the player that has Chekhov's gun or last had Chekhov's gun, if you've, turned in a token, in this case a bullet, it's marked right there, to gain it. So sorry, if you've used it, it's back in the pile. You can spend a bullet to gain it. The last player to have possession of the gun, if it happens to be over here, is the active player and will be the one that passes the card to the second player. So for example, if Inspector Weaver happened to have purchased Chekhov's gun, he would then be the active player passing 1 card over to Lucky Dan Hamilton. And that's the differences in the competitive and the cooperative version of the game. Now we're going to go into our review of the game. So keep it right here and we'll tell you if we managed to solve the case or not, or if he got away. So Pulp Detective, what did you think of the game? Was it dark and mysterious enough for you?
Well, I was curious about this because I've always liked this art, the pulp fiction and that time frame and that art. It's a little bit the beginning of marketing as well, right? So
the zines and
special place in my
comic books.
Yeah, there you go. It's a forefather of comic book. That's why you like it. Yeah. So for me, I was interested and I really like, it's very thematic. I like the fact that it really does play, the art is beautiful. Every single card and piece really thematically fits into the genre. And so I really appreciated that.
Oh, don't forget the characters. The names of the characters is very pulpy, like Lucky Dan Hamilton.
Yeah, so that was great. And I like the fact that every component really does fit into that. You know, so you have the informants, you got the cliffhangers, you're following a lead. So I thought that was great.
And of course, the two extra die, the red die is the paper boy, and then the gray die is the mafia.
Yeah.
So, you know, it really does, like, and I'm just jumping a little bit now so I don't sort of reiterate all of this, is that it gets the feel of being like a pulpy comic book. You can just imagine, like, when you get that red die, you're stopping that paper boy and saying, hey, what's going on? Give me the inside scoop.
Yeah.
And
so what I didn't like as much is it's still pretty random. So I'll go out there to say the competitive version is not my favorite version because we're not playing together, and it just, at least in the version we played together, the case we played against each other, like, if it's not stringing together, if you're just having bad luck, that's just, it's very random, and it can be very hard to be able to string the right cards, to be able to get rerolls that are so important in this game. The cooperative version, I found, mitigated the randomness a little bit, because you can work together to achieve your goals, and you can work together to give yourself another opportunity for rerolls.
Well, I think the one thing that, just to talk a little bit about the cooperative aspect, is rerolls together is great. But the one thing that I think made the biggest difference is when you gain a clue, you gain a stamina. It means that you've got opportunities when it's like, we might get that clue. It's like, well, if we both get that clue, I'll take a risk in this situation, you know, to make something happen, because we both know we're going to be getting stamina, or we're going to get that die, and then maybe the next card, she's going to solve the clue, and then we'll get our stamina back. Just made it was easier, and it had a better flow. Well, I don't think easier is the right way to put it. I'd say it just flowed better in terms of being competitive or playing solo.
Yeah. So for me, that's it. I mean, the negative aspect of it is when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. The competitive version just went on forever, and at one point I was just like, okay, I'm done with this. Can you just win? Can somebody win, please, so that we can be done with this game?
And ironically enough, is that if we'd actually been playing that as a cooperative version of the
we
game,
would have won a long time before.
A long time ago, and even though we were like butting heads competitive, we still got a total of 4 clues.
Yeah, we weren't really butting heads, but it's just because we weren't working together. I mean, in that version, I got a clue very early on, and then nothing was working for me, and it just felt like it was going on forever. Every card I picked up, nothing meshed together. I wasn't able to do anything really, and you know, it just made it frustrating.
No, and I do agree. The competitive version, we kind of realized about 2/3 of the way through that there was very little chance that we could actually win the game, and that's a disappointing thing for me. And just to highlight what Julie said, it is very random. The first time I was sort of playing around with the solo version of the game, it just wasn't working very well. I wasn't getting any die rolls. It was slow, frustrating, and I wasn't having a good time. I did take a close look at the rule book, and the second time I played it solo, got a little bit better die rolls. It was flowing better, but I still ended up not being able to beat the case. What I did like about the cooperative version of the game is that I think it's sort of a downside, I think, when you're playing solo or competitive, that you can lose the game very early on. But in the cooperative version of the game, if things just aren't working and you know early on, it's not so bad, because you're typically about 5 minutes into the game. Like, you might have barely started and you kind of know where things are going, and you'll be like, well, this may not be going well, and if time speeds up very quickly, you're just going to be resetting it, which I found to be more fun when you're playing together, because losing together didn't seem to be as annoying or as frustrating as just being like, you know, midway through a solo game being like, I got nothing, and this was not fun. With the cooperative element, it's kind of like everything has to be going badly. Like, you're not getting the rolls and you're not getting the cards to give you the re-rolls. So you're losing your opportunity to work together. I guess when everything's against you, it doesn't feel as bad.
So based on that, and exactly for what Jason just said, for me, if I'm going to give it my rating, the cooperative version rates a 7 for all the reasons you just mentioned, and the competitive version rates a 6, 6.5 to me because of that. And I'm not going to repeat everything, because that's exactly for the reasons that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So I'll give my rating. I mean, I think, well, I want to just highlight once again, Artwork's fantastic.
Yep.
Production value and the value of the game. We also got an expansion with the game. We will be doing a review of the expansion at a later date, but the game is very portable. You can play it just about anywhere. If you're trying to make really big storylines, it can get a little table consuming, but if you keep things concise, and I think more if you're trying to work together and give the other player rerolls, it does have a very good footprint, easy to travel with, and this is the perfect thing. You're going on a couple's vacation, you're going you're going down south, and you just want something that you can take out, play together in the morning while you're drinking your coffee, looking at sunrise. This is a great game, and as Julie said, very thematic. Really enjoy the art, and once again, for those of you that maybe skipped over the intro, this was a Kickstarter game. The campaign went very well, and we got it like 3 months early. So I got to give the team there a big 2 thumbs up once again. Now, stop rambling on there. I'm going to give it my score. So for the cooperative element of the game, I'm going to give it a 7.5. It works very well. And the varying levels of difficulty means you can set yourselves up for some very cool challenges. You also have the different cases, which are a nice varying degree of difficulty. So enjoyed that. The solo as well as the competitive version, I got to give it more of a 6.5 because I find it can be very frustrating. If any of you guys want to go on the Kickstarter pages, you'll see just some recent comments about people not people, I've only seen one person so far, I haven't gone through everything, that really had some frustrations with the solo game because of the level of randomness that you get. And once just reiterated, if nothing works for you, you don't get the right cards, you don't get rerolls, and you're not able to build a good storyline, you will lose the game and you will know it fairly early on. And that's a big detractor for me. The saving grace is the fact that this is designed to be a 20-minute game. So even if that's going on, it's not like you've invested a few hours just to have everything go collapse down on you.
So we're going to have the links above to other videos.
Yeah, which may or may not be related. There will definitely be a link for the expansion once we get around to doing it in the future. Don't forget there will be links to our social media feeds below, and we're going to try to do some more stuff on Instagram. She's great at taking pretty pictures. So we'll see what we can do for you guys.
We've got some fun surprises. We'll talk about it. You'll see another video. Went to NYCC, so it might be some cool behind-the-scenes shots that you might be able to see there.
Yeah, we'll see when we're able to get that video out. And for those of you, it actually might be linked above because maybe we're going to get it out before this one. Who knows? And don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. I really enjoy when you like the videos because it brings not just the liking the videos, but the comments. It brings a little twinkle to our eye.
Yep.
So I'll let you take it out.
We're going to grab our drink.
Grabbing the drink.
Grabbing our partner.
Our best partner. There were some really crappy ones. I mean, you've seen Lethal Weapon. What was that guy's name? Joe Pesci's character. Oh.
All right, keep playing games.
Keep playing games.
You're disappointed in the competitive version. You would have been. You would have liked to be able to just kick my butt.
Not necessarily. I was really looking forward to
winning.
Not winning. I do like winning, but I was really hoping to have a competitive game where you only lightly touch each other. There's not a lot of headbutting like you don't like to see. That we could play quickly and easily because I wanted to be basically like, hey, let's play cooperatively. Oh, you don't want to play something? I'll play by myself. Or I'm mad at you. I can try to kick your butt.
No, I just lightly touch you.